the difference between assets and liabilities, what you need to know to change your financial life. Before we start, let me ask you a question. Did you know that most people will never get rich because they don't understand the difference between assets and liabilities? It seems simple, doesn't it? But this small detail can be the turning point between a life of financial difficulties and a life full of prosperity. I know a lot of people think that wealth is just about making a lot of money, buying expensive things, and living a luxurious life, but that's not the case. The secret to achieving financial freedom is understanding and applying the difference between assets and liabilities in your daily life. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here. Maybe you've heard about assets and liabilities, but never stopped to reflect on the impact of these concepts on your financial life. Let me explain it to you in a simple way. Assets are everything that puts money in your pocket, and liabilities are everything that takes money out of your pocket. Sounds easy, right? Well, it is this difference that will help you get out of a cycle of debt and enter a cycle of investments and growth. However, it is important to understand that what many consider assets may actually be liabilities in disguise. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, thinking they are making smart investments when in reality, they are just purchasing things that will generate more expenses. But how to identify this? If you're still not convinced of the importance of this, I give you a challenge. Stay with me until the end of this video. I promise that once you understand how to apply this concept in practice, your view of money will change forever. Before we continue and you start to understand how to apply these concepts in your daily life, if you are already enjoying the content and want to learn more about how to improve your finances, leave a like below. This helps me bring more videos like this to you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This way you can stay up to date with all our content, and in addition, you will start learning how to change your financial life once and for all. Let's do this together, okay? What are assets and liabilities? Understanding the difference. Now that you know the basics about the difference between assets and liabilities, let's go into more detail about what really makes each a good or bad investment. As I mentioned, assets are anything that puts money in your pocket, and liabilities are the opposite. Anything that takes money out of you. But how does this apply to your real life? Imagine you are thinking about buying a new car. Let's use the example of a car. For many people, a car seems like an asset, doesn't it? After all, if you work as an app driver or have a business that depends on transportation, the car can generate a good source of income. But for most people, a car is actually a liability. Why? Because a car, even a new and beautiful one, doesn't directly generate money for you. On the contrary, it will require ongoing expenses for fuel, maintenance, insurance, taxes, and of course, depreciation. With each passing day, the value of the car decreases. So, even if you dream of buying that dream car, if it is not bringing you a financial return in some way, it is not an asset. It is a liability that will take money out of your pocket month after month. Now, imagine that you invest the same amount that you would spend on a new car in shares of a good company. Shares, depending on the company and the market, can generate dividends or even market value in the future. These shares, in this case, would be an asset because they can put money in your pocket. The difference is clear, isn't it? Here's the point. The secret to being financially successful is to understand that if you want to build wealth, you must acquire more and more assets and avoid spending your money on liabilities. Sounds simple, right? But I know that in practice it can be difficult. Now tell me, have you ever stopped to reflect on which things you have purchased that are generating money for you, or which are just taking money out of your pocket? This can help you better understand where you are spending your money and how to start changing that. If you reflect on this point, you will begin to see where you need to make adjustments. The good news is that you can start investing in assets today, and over time, this will make all the difference in your financial life. Now, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like and comment below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let's learn together how to transform our spending into smart investments and change our financial life for the better. Let's move on to the next example. How your home can be a liability. even without you realizing it. Let's now talk about one of the most controversial examples that can completely change your view of what an investment is. Everyone who buys a house thinks they're making a great investment, right? After all, it's your dream home, where you'll live with your family, and who doesn't want the security of their own property? But here's the big surprise. For many people, owning a home is a liability. I know, it seems strange, because in many cases, the house ends up appreciating over time, right? But let's look at it from another angle. The house doesn't generate money for you. On the contrary, it will generate ongoing expenses with maintenance, taxes, financing fees, and other costs that will take money out of your pocket every month. Let's do a practical analysis. If you bought a house and took out a loan, you are probably paying installments every month. This amount you pay is not going back into your pocket. Instead, he is leaving to pay the mortgage, taxes, and other expenses. And the house? It will not generate any financial return unless you sell or rent it, which, in many cases, is not the initial purpose of the purchase. Then you might think, but my house is appreciating in value. If I sell it, I can make good money. This is true to some extent. Yes, your house may increase in value over time, but are you going to sell the house to buy a cheaper one and put the money in your pocket? If the answer is no, then the house is not an asset. It is a liability. It doesn't generate money for you. It only generates expenses. And this is the central point. Your own home, when purchased to live in, normally falls into the liability category. Here's an example to illustrate further. Imagine that, instead of buying a house, you'd invested the value of the house in an investment fund or in stocks that pay dividends. This investment could generate passive income for you, putting money in your pocket every month. Now, instead of having a house that only takes money from you, you would have an asset that works for you. Have you ever stopped to think about the real cost of your own home? Is it really bringing you profit, or is it just generating monthly costs? Reflect on this. If you start to understand the difference between what is really an asset and what is just a liability, you will be able to make much smarter decisions in the future, focusing on what can really make you money. Now, how about seeing more examples of how you can transform the way you spend money and ensure that you are making investments that are really worth it? Let's go to the next one. The importance of understanding the difference for your financial life. Now that we've talked about practical examples of assets and liabilities, it's important to highlight the impact that understanding this difference can have on your financial life. This understanding goes beyond just knowing what an asset or liability is. It can change the way you make your choices every day and, over time, define whether you will be heading towards a life of prosperity or whether you will continue to be stuck in a cycle of financial difficulties. When you begin to realize that what you buy and acquire can be classified as assets or liabilities, you begin to make more conscious and intelligent decisions about your money. It's not just about saving or cutting costs, but about investing strategically in assets that will work for you, generating financial returns. For example, when you purchase shares in a good company or invest in real estate funds, you begin to create a source of passive income. This means that, as you continue with your life, these investments begin to put money in your pocket without you having to put in any additional effort. This is the true concept of financial freedom. Money works for you. In contrast, if you continue to acquire liabilities, such as new cars, branded clothes, or expensive products, thinking that these will improve your financial life or increase your status, you may end up getting stuck in the cycle of consumerism. These expenses will only increase your expenses and reduce your ability to invest in things that will really generate a return. Another crucial point is that by understanding the difference between assets and liabilities, you become much more critical and analytical about your financial decisions. You start to question why you are spending money on something that won't generate a return, and you start to prioritize investments that can really help you achieve your long-term financial goals. Over time, this shift in mindset could be what allows you to achieve true financial freedom. Instead of living paycheck to paycheck, you could be building a portfolio of assets that will ensure passive income and solid financial security in the future. However, It is worth highlighting that this change does not happen overnight. It requires dedication and discipline. It's not easy to change spending habits or reevaluate financial decisions you've made for years. But over time, you will realize that by investing more in assets and spending less on liabilities, your financial situation will improve considerably. Therefore, it is essential that you make a sincere analysis of where you are putting your money now and where you could be investing more intelligently to ensure a more prosperous financial future. The impact of liabilities on your day-to-day, how consumerism can prevent you from getting rich. Now that we understand the difference between assets and liabilities, let's talk about how rampant consumerism can keep you trapped in a cycle of financial difficulties and prevent you from achieving true wealth. Consumerism is something that is present in many people's lives, and it ends up creating a false sense of prosperity. You've probably found yourself buying something because you thought it would be a good investment, or because you simply wanted to keep up with the latest trends and show others that you have money. But here's the truth. Many of these purchases, like branded clothes, expensive cell phones, and fashionable electronic devices like smartwatches, wireless chargers, smart bracelets, fitness tracking devices, are liabilities disguised as assets. They do not generate financial returns. On the contrary, they require you to constantly spend money to maintain them. A new cell phone, for example, requires a monthly plan, insurance, accessories, and will eventually depreciate quickly. The new car will also, as we have already discussed, require monthly maintenance expenses, taxes, insurance, and will also lose value over time. When you buy these items and prioritize them, you are basically taking money out of your pocket that could be invested in assets, such as shares or real estate, which could, instead of taking money from you, generate passive income in the future. This cycle of consuming and paying for liabilities ends up creating a scenario in which you need to work more and more to cover these expenses. Many people end up getting into what we call the rat race, where they are always chasing a salary increase or looking for overtime at work, simply to cover the liabilities they have created. The truth is that instead of working to buy more liabilities, you should be working to acquire assets that guarantee a continuous flow of money and that over time will allow you to have a more peaceful and secure financial life. But how to avoid this cycle? The first thing is to become aware of what is really taking away your money. Start reflecting on your daily expenses and whether they are really bringing you closer to your financial goals, or whether they are just keeping you stuck in a consumption cycle. Will that new cell phone or that new car really improve your financial life? Or are they just passing desires that will lead you to more debt and more work to maintain this lifestyle? By understanding the impact of these liabilities, you begin to realize that the path to wealth is not about spending more and more, but rather about investing intelligently and strategically. By buying assets that actually provide you with passive income, you will be taking the first step to break out of this cycle and start building a solid financial future. It is essential that you change the focus of your spending, replacing liabilities with assets. This doesn't mean you can't spend money on things you enjoy, but it's important that you ask yourself, will this spending help me make more money in the future? If the answer is no, it may be time to reconsider your financial priorities. This shift in mindset will help you stop working just to pay your bills and allow you to start working towards achieving true financial independence. How liabilities can lead you to a life of debt and how to avoid it. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest risks that consuming liabilities can bring to your financial life: debt. When you start to acquire liabilities without realizing it, the tendency is for your expenses to increase progressively while your income remains limited. This creates a situation where you start spending more than you earn, and then debt comes into play. Imagine that you bought a new car, which requires monthly installments for financing, insurance, and maintenance. At some point, you also decide to take out a personal loan to cover some unforeseen expenses, or to make a down payment on a larger property. When you least realize it, your bills start to pile up, and you need to use credit to pay for everything you bought. And that's when the snowball starts to grow. The problem is that in many cases, these debts do not generate financial returns. They are not helping you build wealth or generate a source of passive income. On the contrary, They are just consuming your monthly income, making you work harder and harder to pay for what you have already purchased. This is the real danger of accumulating liabilities. They undermine your finances and trap you in a vicious cycle of debt. To avoid this trap, it is essential that you carry out a rigorous analysis of your expenses and what is really worth it in your budget. Always ask yourself, am I buying something that will really add value to my financial life, or am I just adding another debt to my name? When you start to realize that most of your spending is on liabilities, the solution is to change your strategy immediately. The first step is to stop accumulating liabilities. If you already have debts, look for ways to pay them off as soon as possible. It may be tempting to keep buying that new car, big house, or other status items, but remember that these items aren't making you money back. If you want to improve your financial situation, your focus should be on paying off your debts, cutting down on unnecessary expenses, and starting to invest in assets. Another important point is credit control. Many people get into debt due to excessive use of credit cards or personal loans. The ease of credit makes us feel tempted to buy things that we cannot pay for in cash, believing that we will be able to pay for them in the future. However, credit interest can turn a simple purchase into a financial snowball that becomes increasingly difficult to control. The secret is to avoid using credit to buy liabilities. If you cannot pay in cash, think twice before purchasing the item. Start applying the money-first concept. This means that you should prioritize your financial health before satisfying a momentary consumer desire. When you stop using credit to consume liabilities, you start taking important steps towards reducing your debts and improving your financial health. Remember, true financial freedom comes from taking control of your finances and choosing to invest in assets that will generate income for you in the future. What you buy today could be taking you into a life of debt or bringing you closer to wealth. Therefore, be strategic and careful when making your financial choices. The point here is not to say that you should live a life without any luxury or pleasure, but rather that you need to be conscious about what you are doing with your money. By investing in income-generating assets, you will be creating a more secure, debt-free financial future. And that is a big step towards building true wealth. The challenge of running to maintain your lifestyle and how to prevent this from becoming a trap. Let's now talk about what many people face every day, often without even realizing it. The famous hustle and bustle to maintain a lifestyle that deep down doesn't bring the financial security they so desire. This is a vicious cycle that many people fall into when they spend more than they earn, acquiring liabilities that require more work and more overtime to cover their expenses. The idea of living to appear to be rich or successful leads many people to make impulsive financial decisions, buying expensive items that they cannot pay for outright, or going into debt to maintain a standard of living that they actually cannot afford. Sustain. This creates constant pressure to maintain the same level of consumption, forcing you to work longer hours, take out loans, or even sacrifice other important areas of your life to cover these expenses. Ultimately, you end up stuck on a Ferris wheel where your salary barely covers your liabilities, and you are forced to work harder and harder to maintain your lifestyle. But why does this happen? One of the reasons is the consumer society we live in, which constantly encourages us to buy things that make us feel part of an exclusive group, or that make us appear more successful than we really are. The media, social networks, and even friends and family often pressure us to show an image of prosperity, which is often not real. And this desire to maintain a facade can end up leading us to spend more than we can afford and fall into debt that, over time, becomes increasingly difficult to pay off. This is where the importance of letting go of the need to show status through the things you buy comes into play. It's not about being against consuming or having quality goods, but rather being aware that true financial success is not in what you have, but in what you are able to build with your investments. The focus should be on ensuring your financial freedom and security in the future, and not on acquiring goods that, instead of bringing you lasting satisfaction, will only increase your monthly expenses. Have you ever stopped to think about how much time you spend working to pay for something that, in the end, will not bring any financial return? Instead of working harder and harder to support a passive lifestyle, how about thinking about building a future where your work is rewarded by smart investments that generate passive income. This is what will ensure that, in the long term, you can live more peacefully and freely without the constant burden of having to chase more and more money to cover your debts. One way to get out of this trap is to start investing in assets that will bring you passive income. Instead of working to pay for a new car or a luxurious house that only generate expenses, work to invest in stocks, real estate funds, or other types of investments that generate a constant financial return. By doing this, your money will start working for you, not the other way around. If you start focusing on building an asset portfolio, the pressure to maintain a high level of consumption will decrease considerably. Don't be fooled by the momentary status that social media and consumption impose. The true goal should be to secure your financial freedom, where you can live according to your own goals and priorities, without the need to show others that you have what you cannot afford. This is the way to get out of the vicious cycle of hustle and bustle, where you work harder to support a lifestyle that does not benefit you financially. By focusing on assets and reducing liabilities, you will begin to create the true foundation for a life of prosperity and security, where money works for you, not the other way around. The deceptive status and the impact of living to appear. Now, let's talk about a trap that many people fall into without realizing it. Living to appear successful, spending money on things that don't bring real value to your financial life. It is common that, in the search for social recognition, many people acquire liabilities, such as expensive cars, branded clothes, or state-of-the-art cell phones, simply to show off to others, without considering whether these items will really add something to their prosperity. The problem with this behavior is that you end up sacrificing your financial stability to maintain a facade. The focus stops being building a solid and secure life and becomes pleasing others and showing off what you have. But what you need to understand is that these purchases are not investments. They are liabilities that require ongoing expenses for maintenance. You may be working more and more, trying to maintain a lifestyle that does not generate financial returns, and this can lead you to a dangerous cycle of debt. It's very easy to fall into the social pressure, especially when social media makes us feel like everyone around us is living a life of luxury and success. However, true success is not in showing others that you have something, but in ensuring that your finances are well structured and that your spending is being done intelligently. So, instead of buying to impress, start thinking about building a solid financial future. Invest in assets that really generate returns and that can guarantee your financial independence in the long term. This is what will bring security and freedom, without the need to chase material goods that, in the end, add nothing to your assets. How to avoid financial rush and conquer freedom. You know when you feel like you're always chasing more money, but you can never achieve true stability? This happens because, by constantly spending on liabilities, such as new cars, designer clothes, or other superfluous items, you end up creating constant pressure to maintain a standard of living that, in practice, does not contribute to your wealth. This hustle and bustle is a direct consequence of the lifestyle focused on immediate consumption and ostentation. You buy things that don't generate financial returns, and you need to work harder and harder to pay these expenses. Over time, the feeling that you are always busy, but unable to achieve true financial freedom, becomes stronger and stronger. The good news is that there is a way out of this cycle. The solution is to change the way you handle your money. Instead of spending on liabilities that don't bring returns, start investing in assets. It can be real estate, shares, or other investments that provide you with passive income over time. With this, you will stop working just to cover your expenses and start building assets that work for you. This change in mindset will allow you to free yourself from the financial hustle and bustle, and instead of always looking for more money to cover liabilities, you will be working to create a constant source of income. This is what will guarantee you a calmer and safer life, without having to live from paycheck to paycheck or always being tied to credit. The way to wealth: invest in assets and avoid the liabilities trap. Finally, let's address the central point of everything we've discussed: how to build a financially prosperous future. The secret is to invest in assets and avoid falling into the liabilities trap. As we've already seen, liabilities are everything that takes money out of your pocket, whether it's a finance car, a house you don't rent, or consumer debt. These liabilities, over time, can cause you to enter the vicious cycle of having to work harder and harder to cover your expenses without achieving true financial freedom. Now, imagine the opposite. You invest in assets that generate passive income. It can be a rented property, shares that pay dividends, or even investments in funds that provide a financial return. These assets start to put money in your pocket, allowing you to live more peacefully and securely. Over time, you will realize that instead of constantly chasing money to cover liabilities, your money will start working for you. The key here is to understand that true wealth is not in what you own, but in what you can generate with your investments. When you adopt this mindset, you begin to build a future where your money is not a burden, but a powerful tool to create more opportunities and more freedom. In short, to get out of the debt cycle and achieve wealth, you need to change the way you handle your money. With this mindset, you will begin to realize that true financial freedom comes from controlling your finances, not flaunting possessions that don't contribute to your prosperity. If you like this content and are ready to change your financial mindset, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment on what you thought of the video, and share with those you know who also need this change. Let's go together towards a more prosperous and conscious financial future.